When we think about Greek mythology, we usually think of heroes and monsters, right? But this one's different. It's about a musician whose art was so incredible, so ahead of its time, that it cost him literally everything in one of the most gruesome ways imaginable. This is the story of Marsyas.
Just imagine hearing those words screamed in absolute agony. Why do you tear me from myself? That's the question the poet Ovid tells us Marsyas cried out as his punishment began. It's a question that just sticks with you, doesn't it? It's completely haunting. So you have to be asking, how in the world does a music contest end like this? What could anyone possibly do to deserve such a fate? Well, to figure that out, we have to go all the way back to the very beginning of the story. And it's a weird one. See, here's the twist. This whole tragedy doesn't even start with Marsyas. Nope. It starts with the goddess, and an act of pure vanity that kicked this whole thing off. It all kicks off with Athena, the goddess of wisdom. She's the one who actually invented the instrument at the center of this story. She crafted this flute, the aulos, from a piece of boxwood, making something totally new. But here's the thing. When she played it, she happened to catch her reflection, and she was horrified. Playing the flute puffed out her cheeks, and for a goddess, messing with her perfect face was a deal breaker. So, as Ovid tells it, she basically said, nope, not worth it, and just tossed the flute aside. And that's where our guy comes in. That flute, thrown away by a goddess, is found by Marsyas, a satyr just hanging out in the forest. And for him, this wasn't some ugly piece of trash. It was an instrument just waiting to be played. And this is where you see that Marsyas was a total genius. He didn't just play the flute, he mastered it. He actually invented this leather strap called a phobia to hold his cheeks in while he played. Think about that for a second. A goddess gave up on this problem, and Marsyas, this satyr from the woods, he just solved it. So, as you can imagine, Marsyas gets really, really good. His music becomes legendary. But you know how it goes. With all that fame and skill came a whole lot of confidence. A confidence that was about to become a fatal mistake. He makes this colossal error in judgment. He, a satyr, challenges Apollo to a music contest. Yeah, that Apollo, the literal god of music. This wasn't just a friendly battle of the bands. This was a mortal basically telling a god, I'm better than you. And the stakes? They were insane. The deal was simple and terrifying. The winner could do whatever they wanted to the loser. No limits. So you have Marsyas and his wild, passionate flute up against Apollo and his perfect, orderly lyre. The stage was set. So the contest begins, and almost immediately it becomes crystal clear that this is not going to be a fair fight, not by a long shot. Marsyas goes first, and he plays his heart out. His music is raw, it's emotional, and the crowd absolutely loves it. For a minute there, it really looks like he might actually win. But then, it's Apollo's turn. And instead of just playing, the god decides to change the rules of the game. He demands they both have to play their instruments upside down and sing at the same time. Marsyas, of course, says, hey, wait a minute, that's impossible for me. But Apollo's logic is cold and airtight. He says since Marsyas uses his mouth for his instrument, Apollo should be allowed to use his mouth for singing. The only other option, neither of them can use their mouths. It was a perfect, inescapable trap. And I mean, what do? You can't play a flute without your mouth. It's impossible. So the judges, kind of backed into a corner by a god's flawless logic, had no choice. They declared Apollo the winner. A mortal's art, no matter how beautiful, just couldn't win against divine rules. And with that verdict, it was time to honor their deal. Remember the stakes? The winner could do whatever he pleased, and what pleased Apollo was just unimaginable.
Apollo didn't just kill Marsyas. No, that would have been too simple. He chose a punishment designed to be the ultimate horror show. He strung Marsyas up from a pine tree and began to skin him alive.
Ovid's account of this is just brutal. He doesn't hold back at all. He describes Marsyas screaming as his skin is ripped from his body until there's nothing left. He was just, quote, nothing but a wound, with blood just pouring out. And it gets even more graphic. Ovid says you could literally see and count his veins pulsing, his organs still working, all laid bare. The point was to show the complete destruction of his body. He stopped being a person and just became pure pain. But believe it or not, the story doesn't end with this act of horrific violence. Out of all this pain and suffering, something entirely new, something almost beautiful, was born.
All the creatures of the forest who had loved Marsyas and his music, the nymphs, the other satyrs, the shepherds, they all gathered around and just wept. Their grief was so powerful that their tears soaked into the ground and formed a brand new river. They named it the Marsyas River, and it was said to be the clearest, purest water in the whole land.
So what's the takeaway from all this? Well, the obvious lesson is, don't pick a fight with a god. But there's something way deeper going on. The myth says that even Apollo felt remorse afterward. He was so upset he broke the strings on his own lyre. It suggests that creating truly revolutionary art sometimes demands a sacrifice so total, it's like being torn from your own skin. And that really leaves us with one final big question. The story of Marsyas forces us to ask, what is the real price of making art that pushes the boundaries, that challenges the powers that be? His story suggests that sometimes the price is everything, and his music, in a way, lives on forever in that river, a timeless echo of his sacrifice.